All right, everybody. Hello. So, someone suggested that I should do set review for Crimson Vow. So, I plan on going through every card, but rather than do like the grades, you know, like Marshall and LSV do, I think I'll just kind of speculate how good the card is and like whereabouts you'll probably end up picking it in draft comfortably. What's interesting about this set, I think I've looked at most of the cards already, but I haven't really gone deep on each of them yet. But what I think is interesting about this set is that there's so many cards that are almost identical or very similar to cards in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, which was an interesting choice. But let's go through each one. So, because we've got a lot of cards to get through, I'll just start her off. We're going to do it in number order here. All right. So we've got Adamant Will first. Target creature gets +2/+2, gains indestructible until end of turn. 2-mana instant. So this is almost identical to the Faiths here. We can just bring this up. We'll have this up to... This one is very similar, obviously, to Flare of Faith. Very similar. The only difference is Flare of Faith is better on humans, whereas this is good on all creatures. Personally, I think Adamant Will is going to be better in most instances because this is just counter removal spell, basically, or buff a creature to survive combat. So, very good card. You still, I assume, will be probably able to get it as late as Flare of Faith, which is probably to say pretty late. I mean, you're certainly going to be able to wield this card, and it's a good card. So that's usually a good sign. If it's strong and it's wieldable, good sign. So I like Adamant Will in this format. I have a good feeling about it. Next, we have Angelic Quartermaster, 5-mana, 3/3 flyer, Angel Soldier. When it enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 other target creatures. So once again, does this remind you of anything? It should. It's very similar to Gavany Silversmith. So for 1 more mana, you get another power, flying. It's pretty awesome. Gavany Silversmith, once again, was another card that tended to go late in draft, but was very good, I thought. This is also a common, whereas Quartermaster is an uncommon. I think the Quartermaster's not going to be going so late. I think the Quartermaster is significantly better than the Silversmith. So I would anticipate Quartermaster going pretty early in draft, actually. Probably 4th to 6th pick is where you would expect or hope to see the Quartermaster. Because that's just a strong creature. Unlike Silversmith that can buff itself, Quartermaster can only buff 2 other creatures, which is more, I think, like Basri's Acolyte, if you remember that card. I suppose I could have one more window up here. All right. So Basri's Acolyte, yeah, was pretty similar to both of those cards. I think this was really the first of its kind that was the most like that, but all right. Okay, next we have Arm the Cathars, 3-mana, sorcery, uncommon. Until end of turn, target creature gets +3/+3. Up to 1 other target creature gets +2/+2, and up to 1 other target creature gets +3 or +1/+1. Those creatures gain vigilance. This card, little bit less fan of. Really, to maximize it, you need at least 3 creatures. And it's a sorcery, so you can't use it as a combat trick. I don't think this is that great of a card. If you're hyper aggro, it'll allow you to deal quite a bit of extra damage. But overall, I would anticipate this card not being good for every archetype and probably going late. You know, you could easily wield this card as well. Next, we have Bride's Gown, 1 and a white, equipment, uncommon, 2 mana. It's an equipment, so equipped creature gets +2/+0, and it gains an additional +0/+2, and has first strike as long as an equipment named Groom's Finery. When does the arena? Wait, what does that mean? When does it come to arena? November 11th. Oh, November 11th. So 3 days. We're right at the precipice here. Right at the... It's coming. All right. Yes. So personally, I don't think Bride's Gown is that good. Although we'll have to take a look at this Groom's Finery to really, I think, ultimately make that choice. It looks like it's a different color too. So we'll get back to it. But this by itself, only okay. Not that great. No problem. It seems similar to like Hedwig's Mask, which was +1 but can't be blocked except by creatures with, or can't be blocked by creatures with power 4 or greater. I assume this will go late, and I don't think it's that good. We'll see what the Groom's Finery is. If you can make the full, because I would say +2/+2 equip 2 is very good, but having to get the combo, especially if they're both uncommon in draft, going to be unusual, going to be a little bit more challenging. Probably not worth pursuing. I expect this to go late in draft. By invitation only, this is a powerhouse rare, easy first pick. So you get to choose the number. Sorry, just getting the volume right here. You get to choose the number, which makes this exceptionally good. Say you have 5 creatures and your opponent has 2 creatures. You pick 2, they sack both their creatures, you get rid of your weakest 2, and you can continue to beat them down. So by invitation only, quite good. And if I read anything incorrectly, please let me know, because you know I'm kind of like reading these quickly and evaluating them. So if you feel like I'm not, if I read it incorrectly, just let me know. But yes, by invitation only, very, very strong limited card. Probably constructed playable too, I imagine. Board wipes, I guess not always are, but this is an interesting one, and I like it quite a bit. Easy first pick. Cemetery Protector. It's a mythic 4-mana 3/4 flash. When it enters, you exile a card. This ability here that I'm about to read is kind of a running theme in the format too. When Cemetery Protector enters the battlefield, exile a card from your graveyard, and whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a card type with the exile card, create a 1/1 white human. So you're playing lands, you're casting spells. Say you exile a land card from a graveyard, whenever you play a land, you just get a 1/1. This card is exceptionally strong. Easy first pick. And the fact that it exiles cards from graveyards is super relevant in a disturb and in a disturb format. So the pseudo landfall. That's true. It is pseudo landfall at that point, isn't it? Great card, easy first pick. Circle of Confinement, 2 mana, uncommon, enchant. So it enters, you exile a creature with mana value 3 or less until it leaves the battlefield. We've seen that plenty in white. I think with Cemetery Protector, you're going to end up just picking whatever is relevant. I mean, you're going to make a choice there. If they have a disturbed creature, you're probably just picking the disturbed creature because you're getting a flash 3/4 and you're getting rid of a threat from their graveyard. If they have a land there and you have a bunch of lands you anticipate drawing and they don't have anything else worth targeting, yeah, you're going to pick land and probably make a bunch of 1/1s. So if you're not making 1/1s but you're getting rid of a disturbed creature, I still feel like it's pretty relevant. Especially since all future card type, future creatures you cast will generate a 1/1, which is obviously awesome too. So yeah, Circle of Confinement, back to that. Basically, you get to exile a creature, 3 mana value 3 or less, and whenever they cast a vampire spell with the same name as the card exiled, you gain 2 life. So kind of I mean, in limited, it certainly could pop up, especially with commons. They might have 3 or 4 in their deck, and then occasionally you gain life off of it, but it is limited in what it can target. I still think it's a very high pick, considering its very efficient removal that exiles. So also good against Disturb. I anticipate it going early in drafts, probably within the first 6 picks or so. Next, we have Dawnheart Geist, 2 mana, 1/3. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 2 life. This is a weird card. I have to see how many enchantments we're actually dealing with in this format. It's also an uncommon. It feels like it's a little bit of a build around, although I know that there's life gain value cards in this format. So if you're building around some sort of life gain value deck, I anticipate this going early, maybe in packs 2 and 3. But as far as like building around it super early in draft, probably not the best idea, since you would both need enchantments to trigger it and life gain value cards to get some sort of huge benefit from it. So a bit of a niche archetypal card. I don't anticipate it going super early in the first pack. I see. That's a good point. So as Andrew just mentioned, all of these Disturb cards, Disturb in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, the backside was also a creature. Not always, but no, I think it was always. In this, it's always an aura that's on the backside. So we'll have to take a look at this for the next one. But still, I don't anticipate Dawnheart Geist being a super early pick. Even though the effect is relevant with a couple of the archetypes, I still feel like you can pick it up later in pack 1, maybe earlier in packs 2 and 3 if you're already down the Disturb path. All right, let's look at Distracting Geist here. So 3 mana, 2/1. Whenever it attacks, you tap a creature defending player controls, and then its Disturb cost is 5. And then it comes back, you can enchant one of your creatures with. Whenever this creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. This effect is typically very good in draft, and I anticipate being able to take this early, very early. I think it's a strong effect. The fact that you don't have to pay to tap either is very nice. It just attacks. It is a 3 mana 2/1, so obviously not very efficient. But on top of that, being able to come back, yes, I would anticipate this card being quite strong and probably being picked within the first 6 picks or so. Okay, next we have Drogskull Infantry. So we've got a 2 mana 2/2. It disturbs for 4 and comes back as a +2/+2 aura. Once again, very good common, very solid card. How much of this set have I gone through? Not that many so far, just the first few. This card's very good. It's a common, so you're probably likely to see quite a few of them. The fact that it's 2 mana 2/2 is great. The Disturb, extra value. I haven't gone through too much, just the first like 7 or 8 cards. Yes, I would anticipate this being a pretty highly sought after common. +2/+2 aura is really nothing to scoff at, even when you're paying 4 mana for it, just because it can really change the outcomes of mini battle situations. So I like this card quite a bit. Certainly not a card you have to pick up very early because there's going to be stronger cards still, but I would say you can wheel this card, and you're probably, your archetype is open if it is, because it's a solid 2-drop. But I would say you're probably looking at between 6 and 10. 6 and 10 sounds about right of what pick you'd probably expect to see infantry and be happy about it. Whoops. All right, let's do the next one. All right, Estwald Shield Basher. This is an interesting card. 4 mana, 4/2. I wonder if, do you want me to like zoom in more? Would that help? But now it's kind of cut off. Well, that's all right. Hopefully you guys can read what I'm looking at here. So Shield Basher, 4 mana, 4/2. Whenever it attacks, you can pay 1. If you do, it gains indestructible until end of turn. Really good for aggro beatdown decks. Not so good outside of that, but 1 mana, make it indestructible on attacks, as well as, we haven't seen one yet, but we're coming upon them. The train mechanic. This is going to be a great card to help with your training mechanic cards, which we'll get to. But I think Shield Basher, once again, not a card you have to pick early, but a card you can find mid to late. We'll say, once again, probably the 6 to 10 category that you should be pretty happy about, because if you're a beatdown deck, you're going to be happy, even though it's 4 mana, just because it can attack pretty consistently. 1 mana to make it indestructible on attack is quite good. So I like it. Good synergy with training. Faithbound Judge, Mythic, 3 mana, 4/4, Defender, Flying, Vigilance. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it has 2 or fewer judgment counters on it, you get to put a judgment counter on it. And then if it has 3 or more judgment counters on it, it can attack. So basically you play it efficiently costed creature that can't attack, wait a few turns, then it can attack, and then it comes back as an aura that curses your opponent. You can, at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a judgment counter on it, and then if your opponent has 3 or more judgment counters, they lose the game. This gets 3 or more judgment counters, your opponent loses the game. Obviously, a very strong mythic. I would expect to take that first pick and be pretty happy about it. Next, we have Fierce Retribution, some white removal. 2 mana, destroy an attacking creature. This also introduces a new mechanic, Cleave, which is quite cool. So Cleave is a different cost than the converted mana cost. My results in my Magic career, I have no idea. I've probably played too many games. So destroy an attacking creature for 2 mana instant, or pay 6 mana and you ignore the bracket word. So for 6 mana, you destroy target creature. For 2 mana, you destroy an attacking creature. This is a great card. I would anticipate taking it pretty early. Solid removal. Yes, I would say you could take this the first, 6 picks. If you ever wield this, your archetype, I would say white is open if this wheels, and you should feel good. All right, Fleeting Spirit. Maybe I just need to click each one so it kind of brings it up a little bit more. So this is 1 and a white, 3/1. You can pay a white, exile 3 cards from your graveyard, give it first strike, or you can discard a card and return to the battlefield. Exile it, return to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Great card. If you have a bunch of excess cards in your graveyard, it becomes a 3-power first striker for 1 mana, which is quite good. And if your opponent tries to remove it or do some combat trick, you can just discard a card and save it. So I like it. I think this is a strong uncommon. Not a card you have to first pick. I would say you should probably be taking this somewhere between picks 4 to 8. If you're finding it in that range, you're probably pretty happy to get it. All right, next we have Griff Rider. All right, this is the introduction of the training mechanics. So this is a 3 mana 2/1 flyer with training. Training is whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So I would say great card. The fact that it's got evasion with training is very, very good. This is one of those cards that would be very, very good with erstwhile Shield Basher. I would anticipate I'm going to be taking this pretty early, somewhere between, once again, 4 to 8, somewhere in that range, and be happy about it. All right. I apologize if I'm picking up the pace. Feel free to ask any questions you want. All right, Griffwing Cavalry, 4 mana, 2/2, flying. It's got training as well, and whenever it attacks, you can pay 2 if you do target attacking creature without flying, gains flying until end of turn. This is a very powerful uncommon. It's got the training, and you can give the creature that it's attacking with that also will train it flying for 2 mana. I would anticipate taking this quite early. This is a strong card for both aggro or any sort of mid-range deck. Even though it's a 4 mana 2/2, I would still expect a mid-range deck to be able to take a lot of advantage of that ability and just be able to fly over top for alpha. Definitely. Rider looks good with the 4/2 Indestructible Dude, and Cavalry looks great with the Indestructible Dude too. Since Indestructible Dude's fine on its own, and for 2 mana, you don't have to pay for the Indestructible, and you get a flyer that buffs this 2 turns in a row. As well as, I mean, you get in for 6 damage, then you get in for 7 damage. That's huge damage output. The creature with training is the one that gets the counter, not the other creature. Great card. I could actually see this getting first picked, but I would expect it picks 1 through 6, and you're pretty thrilled in that range. Strong card. All right, next we have Hallowed Haunting. Yes, it is the reverse of Mentor. All right, Hallowed Haunting, 4 mana, mythic. As long as you control 7 or more enchantments, creatures you control have flying and vigilance. And then whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get a white spirit cleric creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of spirits you control. So, cool card. Build around. Would you first pick it every time? Absolutely not. You don't need the 7 or more enchantments to get the flying and vigilance. You don't need that effect for this card to be good, because whenever you're casting enchantments, you're spitting out creatures anyway. But I would anticipate a build around not always wanting to be your first pick. It does sort of limit the rest of your draft into you will need some enchantments to get anything out of this card. So something to keep in mind. And also it doesn't get its own cast ability. Maybe if it was when you cast Hallowed Haunting or another enchantment, it would be quite a bit better. But very, very good card in the right archetype. This is not a card I would probably first pick every time unless I was really gung-ho to try it out and see some of the enchantment spirit synergies. Once again, it's just another card that kind of requires quite a bit going on. You need spirits so that... I mean, it is a spirit, so it at least makes a 1/1. Yes, I think... Aren't all of the Disturb card backs enchantments? So if you're casting auras on the second half of your Disturb cards, you are getting value off of this too, which is cool. But you still need a target to cast those auras onto. Either way, like I said, I probably wouldn't first pick this every time. Strong if you can get it going. If you don't have anything else super exciting, kind of a fun build around. But packs 2 and 3, if you're already in white and you've got some Disturb cards, you're pretty happy to have this. All right, Heron of Hope. 4 mana, 2/3 flyer. If you gain life, you gain that much life +1, and you can give it lifelink. Pretty good card. Common, evasion, life gain's good. I would say this is a card you pick somewhere probably between 5 and 10. Also a card you could pretty easily wheel. But certainly not a card you need to pick or prioritize super early. Pretty good beater. Lifelink on an evasive creature can really turn the tide. And if you have an aura that makes it bigger with your Disturb cards, also quite a bit better. And remember, because of that first ability, you're gaining 3 life just on what it is when you attack and deal damage with it. Pretty good card. All right, next is Heron Blessed Geist. This is a 5 mana, 3/3 flyer. You can exile it from your graveyard, create 2 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. Activate only if you control an enchantment and only as a sorcery. So, this is a good card. It flies, it's a spirit, and after it dies, you can get 2 more white evasive creatures. So I would say, as far as picks go on a common, this is a common you can prioritize pretty early. It's only a 5 mana 3/3 flyer, which is about the right cost, but on top of that, you get graveyard value. So if it gets milled or it dies, getting 2 more evasive bodies. Once again, you have to have an enchantment in order to activate it, but as people have mentioned, the back of all Disturb cards are enchantments, so not that unlikely to get that going. As far as picks go, probably not a first pick, but I would say if you're getting it between 4 and 8, it's a good pick, and you're feeling pretty good about it. And if you're wheeling it, you're feeling very good about it, because I think it's actually a pretty strong effect. Usually 2 bodies in 1, even if it takes a little bit of a setup, is quite good. Especially at common. Hopeful Initiate. 1 mana, 1/2. It's got training. You can remove 2 counters from among creatures you control to destroy an artifact or enchantment. We'll have to take a closer look at what kind of artifacts there are, but as far as enchantments go, we've already seen quite a few. And the fact that you don't actually have to sacrifice it in order to destroy artifacts and enchantments is cool. As far as a first pick goes, I would say yes. It's a 1 mana, 1/2, so it's not like a crazy beatdown, but the fact that it's got training, if you're playing a beatdown aggro deck, a 1 mana, 1/2 that your 2-drop can start pumping immediately is very good. So yes, if you're planning on being beat down, I think Hopeful Initiate is quite good. Outside of a beatdown deck, I wouldn't anticipate probably playing this too often because you're not going to be attacking in until the mid-range part of the game, and at that point, a 1/2 is not going to be able to strike in that well. All right, next we have Catilda, Dawnheart Martyr. 3 mana, it's star, flying, lifelink, pro vampires. Power and toughness each equal to the number of permanents you control that are spirits and or enchantments. And then it's got disturb for 5, and it's an aura, flying, lifelink, pro vampires. And they get +X/+X, where X is the number of permanents you control that are spirits and or enchantments. So once again, this is sort of a build around as far as first picks go. This one is probably worth building around because both sides are great. Flying, lifelink, the pro vampires is relevant in a vampire set. I would anticipate being able to first pick this and probably worth building around, just grabbing up spirits and enchantments. Very good card. Next we have Kindly Ancestor. So this is a 3 mana 2/3 lifelink spirit. It's got disturb and it gives creature lifelink. Excuse me. I think this card's good. I like this card. 3 mana 2/3 lifelink is actually a pretty good body. And you don't even have to first pick it. So I would say you could get this somewhere between picks 4 and 10 and feel good about it. Lantern Flare, 2 mana instant. It's got cleave. So with just the white side, it deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control, or you can pay the cleave cost, which is an X spell with red and white, and it can deal X damage to a creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. And it's just how much mana you pump into it. This is a phenomenal removal spell. It's rare as well. This would be a first pick, I think, most of the time. If you recall from the last Zendikar set, if someone remembers the name, feel free to pop it in there. But there was a 2 mana multi-faced card that was, half of it was a land and the other half was deal 1 and a white, deal damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. That was a highly, highly playable card. It's on the tip of my tongue. But this is even better than that because this also lets you gain life equal to the creatures you control. So instant speed kill spell plus gain life. Very good. Plus the fact that it's got the cleave attached to it. It's just like a instant speed buff. You don't even have to have creatures. So works for a couple archetypes. Extremely strong. I would say easy first pick. All right, next we have Militia Rallier. This is a 3 mana 3/3. Sorry, did the music stop? No. All right, 3 mana 3/3. Can't attack alone. Kabira Takedown. Thank you. Yes, we can even take a quick look at that. This is the card I was referring to. Thanks for chat for figuring that out. But this is basically what that rare is, except you don't gain life. But this also, remember, the other half was a land. So this was an exceptional uncommon in one of my least favorite sets, Zendikar Rising. All right, back. We got Militia Rallier, 3 mana 3/3. Can't attack alone, and whenever it attacks, untap target creature. Kind of an interesting card. I think it's actually pretty good. Remember, it can always block. It just can't attack alone. So I think it's actually pretty efficient. And the nice thing about Militia Rallier, in my opinion, is that it's both good in aggro and mid-range. Because if you're a mid-range deck, you're not unhappy to play a 3 mana 3/3 if it only can block for a while and eventually attack. It's also good with training as a pretty efficient cost to be able to get it down early enough to attack with your training cards. Yes, that's a great point. It can also untap itself, which I didn't even initially realize. I would say a nice part about this card is you're probably going to be able to get it mid to late. I would say somewhere between even 6 and 10 is totally possible for this card. Certainly going to be able to wheel it. And I think it's actually very good. All right, next we have Nebelgast Beguiler. 5 mana, 2/5. It's a spirit. You can pay a white and tap it to tap target creature. This is a weird card. It's an expensive tapper. It really shows you the night and day difference between, like, say, a Gavany Trapper, which is 1 mana for, well, I mean, we can take a look here. So this is the, I guess you would say, analog from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. 1 mana, 0/2, 2 to tap something. This is a 5 mana, 2/5 that taps creature. It is an irrelevant creature type in this format, being that it's that's a good point, Andrew. The last creature we looked at can also untap, like, we'll see if there's some auras that tap things down to make them not untap, because if there are, then that card even gets better. I think this is playable, but I would never take it early, and this is a card I think you will easily be able to expect to wheel. The problem I have with this card is you're paying 5 mana for a tapper, which is an expensive cost. It is a 2/5, but it's not like you get to do both. You don't get to block and tap. I guess you can block and tap, but you can't tap before they attack and then block, if that makes sense. So a bit odd, and not something you need to pick early. I don't know where it works best. Once again, this is much more of a mid-range style card, in my opinion, than an aggro card. If you're an aggro, you're not willing to pay 5 mana for a 2-power creature, even if it can tap. So I would say you can pick this late, and it will often wheel. All right, next we have Nurturing Presence. So we've got a 2 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So you can see what they're doing with auras now, which is nice. They're trying to make it so you can cast this and get value immediately rather than get 2 for 1 right away. The issue with this card being, of course, that you do get... whoops. One sec. Have to keep that music going. There we go. All right. You can still get 2 for 1. It has to enter the battlefield before you get the 1/1 white spirit. As far as the beatdown deck goes, though, I think this card is totally playable in a pinch, and you're easily going to be able to wheel it. You could probably find this card later than pick 8 quite often, and might be playable in a pinch. Otherwise, not worth going for early, in my opinion. Although getting a evasive creature as well is quite nice. Hey, thanks for the follow, the Rummer Merchant. Appreciate it. Or the Rum Merchant, excuse me. All right. To run non-creature auras. I think if you're a beatdown deck, that card is playable. And the nice thing is, like I said, you can get it very late. 1 mana. All right. Allenbach Escort. 1 mana, 1/1 human cleric. It's got vigilance. So you can sack it, give a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. Odd card. Pretty specific. Not something you have to pick early. A bit of a build around. It obviously works best with training creatures. Because they're going to be the ones that have +1/+1 counters on it. But this is not as good as other similar cards that we've seen. Feel free to shout out the names of those cards, folks, because they're kind of escaping me right now. But there is that, well, Selfless Savior, good. That's what I love about Mythic Spoiler. They show you the similar cards. So this is something that I think is clearly worse than Selfless Savior, because you need to actually have +1/+1 counters in order to use it. Dauntless Bodyguard, I would say, was a better card too, because it's at least a 1 mana 2-power beater. Even if it can... This can make only a specific creature. Well, maybe it's... This is a card that would be good with Disturb Auras with Vigilance. And I'll see it of Life's Bounty. I wasn't thinking of that, but you're right, that I would have expected that to be on this Thesaurus as well. But overall, Playable card. Once again, it's an uncommon. I would think you can get pretty late because it's just niche enough where not necessarily a lot of the times. If you have a lot of training creatures, this is an excellent card. If you don't have a lot of training or +1/+1 counters card, it's pretty mediocre. I would expect to see it late, and probably you can wheel it. All right, next we have Panicked Bystander. 2 mana, 2/2. When it or another creature you control dies, you gain a life. And at the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life, you can transform it. And then it transforms into a 3/5. And whenever it or another creature you control dies, you gain a life, and you can give it Death Touch. So obviously a 3/5 Death Touch is excellent. How often are you going to be able to gain 3 or more life in a turn? I don't think it's that unusual. We already saw a couple cards that gain you life. How often are you going to be able to gain the life from a combat situation where 3 of your creatures die? Not that often. I don't think you're going to be able to flip this by combat situations as often as you'd like, but just gaining 3 life from either a spell or an effect of some sort is totally possible. And getting a 3/5 Death Touch out of this is actually very, very good. This is definitely good with that creature we saw earlier, the 1/3 that gains 2 life every time you cast an aura. How early should you pick this? I think you could pick this actually fairly early. The reason is because even if you're not flipping it, you're still getting that whenever it or another creature you control dies, gain life effect, which is actually quite good. We saw that on the Luminous Phantom. And granted, that card was better because the front side was excellent too. But this effect turned out to be really good. I guess this is whenever it leaves the battlefield. It's not even just dies like this one is. And it's evasive. But this is still very good. I would think taking this early is actually totally appropriate. Like I said, turning it into a 3/5 that can gain Death Touch. I mean, granted, it's specific. You don't have to play this. The nice part is you don't have to play this in white-black. Even if it's just a 2 mana that's flipping into a 3/5 with that upside, you're still pretty happy. 3/5 body is pretty good. If you can pay the black mana and get the Death Touch on this, 3/5 Death Touch is amazingly powerful. So I really like this card, and I think it's going to go pretty early in draft. I wouldn't even be necessarily opposed to first picking this in certain situations if there wasn't removal, but I would expect to take this pretty early, probably the first 6 picks. Wait, Nurturing Presence is on here twice? All right, well, we already did that one, so let's go to the next one. Perish Blade Trainee. So this is a 2 mana 1/2 with training. Whenever it dies, put its counters on target creature you control. This is an interesting card. I think it's playable. It's a 2 mana 1/2, not that good, but it has training, so still playable in your aggro deck. And the fact that it dies, you can at least put a +1/+1 counter on something and it scales from there. Pretty good. It is a common. I would say this goes pretty late, and you're going to be able to wheel this card. Not something you have to prioritize super early. Radiant Grace, 1 mana aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has vigilance. Whenever it dies, return to the battlefield transformed under your control attached to target opponent. So it turns into a curse where all the creatures they control enter the battlefield tapped. This is something that would be playable for aggro, but not something you have to prioritize early. Once again, something you can get after pick 8, and sometimes you're going to play it because if you end up training, or if you end up trading, losing the Radiant Grace, the Curse aura is still semi-relevant and actually quite a bit relevant in a deck that wants to beat down quickly. You're taking them a turn off of their blockers, which is pretty significant. So this card is deceptively playable in aggro decks. I would expect to get it pretty late too. All right, next we have, whoopsie daisy. Next we have Resistance Squad here. So this is a 3 mana 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another human, draw a card. This is an amazing card. I would say this is a very high pick. Plenty of humans we've seen already. It's good with training. You're happy to trade it away. This is basically the Search Party Captain. I will say I like it less than Search Party Captain because you don't always get to draw the card, but in the same vein as Search Party Captain, and I would anticipate taking this card fairly early, especially if you're beat down, but you can also take it in a mid-range deck. So I hope we're noticing a theme here. If the card is good for one archetype, it's only okay. If it's good for multiple archetypes, it's quite a bit better, usually. I would be able to take this pretty early, probably not necessarily first pick, but if you're getting it pick 4 or later, you're pretty happy. All right, next we have Sanctify, which is more of a sideboard card for this set. So 2 mana, destroy an artifact or enchantment, you gain 3 life. This is obviously more relevant in this set because we have disturb cards that come back as enchantments, but not something that I would want to main deck. I'm just usually not big on main decking this, even if the theme of the set has to do with that card type. For example, say they play a disturb card that dies and then they recast it as an aura. Are you really that thrilled that you're main decking a card that deals with half of a card and gains you 3 life? That doesn't really deal with much else in their deck? Probably not. Pretty good sideboard card. Not something you ever have to pick early. You can get it 14th and 15th pick, I anticipate. All right, next we have 3 mana, 1/2. Savior of Allenbach, 3 mana, 1/2 training. Whenever it trains, exile up to one other target creature from the battlefield or creature card from your graveyard. When Savior of Allenbach leaves the battlefield, put the exiled card down the battlefield under their owner's control. Well, this one's easy. You slam dunk this, you first pick it. You do have to train to get some sort of value from it, but it's still insanely powerful and just very, very good. Something to note with this card that I think is very relevant, besides the obvious, you train it and you get to exile their biggest creature. You can exile a creature card from your graveyard, and then when this dies, you get it back under your control. So if you have some huge card in your graveyard, you attack, you train, you exile it, Savior dies, you get your huge creature back. Obviously a first pick, super strong mythic. Not much else to say. Sigarda's Imprisonment, 3 mana. It's an aura. So it's pacifism, but you can also exile the enchanted creature and create a blood token. So this is the first of this type that we've seen. So create a blood token is... so blood token is an artifact with 1 tap, discard a card, and you can sack the artifact and draw a card. So it's basically it's a rummage that you pay 1 and tap for. But we'll see as we get to later cards, there's other uses for blood tokens as well. As far as this card goes, it's obviously an early pick because it's pacifism. You can also exile them, so it's relevant against all disturb cards. And you get to create a blood token at some point with it. I would say you could easily first pick this card and be pretty happy. Next we have Sigarda's Summons, 6 mana, enchantment. Creatures you control with a +1/+1 counters on them have base power and toughness 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other types. Pretty cool card. Would you first pick this? Well, it might be worth building around. If you have plenty of training creatures or other ways to give +1/+1 counters, I would say you're pretty thrilled to turn them into 4/4 angels. 6 mana is a pretty steep cost for that effect. You'd have to have quite a few +1/+1 counter related cards to really make use of this. For that reason, it's probably not a first pick all that often, but quite a fun build around. If you're seeing it in packs 2 and 3, after you already have some training or +1/+1 counter cards, I would say you're much more keen on taking this and pretty happy about it. Next, we have Supernatural Rescue, 4 mana. It's an aura. This spell has flash as long as you control a spirit. When you cast a spell, tap up to 2 target creatures you don't control, and then enchanted creature gets +1/+2. So a bit of an odd card. I like the upside of flashing it in, tapping 2 creatures if you control a spirit. I think that actually makes this more playable than it may appear on the surface. But as far as how early you take it, probably not that early, and probably something you can wheel if no one else is in the archetype. But if you're already picking up spirits or planning on picking up spirits, I would prioritize this pretty highly, actually, just because tapping 2 creatures on their turn and then on your turn being able to strike with a bigger creature is quite good. And it's when you cast it. So say they kill the creature that you're casting this on, you're trying to enchant in response, you still cast it, so you get to tap the 2 creatures. I kind of like this card. Not a card you have to pick early, and pretty good if you're an aggro deck with spirits. And yes, you can wheel it, which is nice. All right, next we have Thalia. Well, we've got a reprint here. So 2 mana, 2/1. If you haven't seen this card before, 2 mana, 2/1. First strike and non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. So this is a staple, or at least it used to be. You guys probably know better than I do, of Historic, Legacy, the older formats. As far as how playable is it in Limited, hugely playable. It's a 2 mana, 2 power first striker. And if you first pick it, you can kind of take a look at your non-creature spells. Keep in mind, most Limited decks have about 8 to 10 non-creature spells. That's pretty standard. So if you have less than that, you're getting more net benefit out of it than your opponent, which is nice. I like this card, and I easily think I could first pick this. Even if you're just looking at the surface of it, 2 mana, 2 power first strike is quite good. All right, next we have Traveling Minister. 1 mana, 1/1 human cleric. It's a common. Target creature gets +1/+0 until in turn you gain a life, but you can only activate it as a sorcery. So as we see in older sets, actually, I'd forgotten they printed Anointer of Champions, but you can see this has been around for a while. It's an interesting combination of abilities. How good is it? I think it's okay, actually. Aggro decks are probably okay with this. Think about the synergy with training. Buff one of your bigger creatures that are attacking with a training creature, and suddenly your trainee gets another little pump. Plus, it's got the life gain synergy. I actually think this card's pretty good, and you can easily wheel it. This will be a nice card in the format for multiple archetype synergies. All right, next we have Twin Blade Geist. 2 mana, 1/1. Double strike, it's got Disturb. So it's a double striker, and the aura, the Disturb aura is enchanted creature, has double strike. Pretty awesome card. Giving your biggest dude double strike after this dies is quite good. It's good with other auras, especially any that pump power, obviously, because of double strike. How highly will you have to pick this? This isn't something you're going to first pick all the time, but I would say you're probably going to end up taking it fairly early. If you don't have a lot of pump effects, it's quite a bit worse. It's just a 2 mana, basically deals 2 damage card. But I would say you're probably not going to wield this very often. The fact that it comes back and gives double strike is quite good. I would say if you're picking it 4 or later, you're pretty happy. All right, next we have Unholy Officiant. So 1 mana, 1/2 Vigilant Vampire Cleric. And then you can pay 5 mana and put a +1/+1 counter on it. So kind of an expensive cost. There's a card that's not listed here that I was thinking was similar to it, and I can't think of the name of it. But I think it was from Zendikar Rising too. Does anybody remember what I'm talking about? There was like a white creature from Zendikar Rising, and you could pay and permanently make it bigger as well, but I might be wrong. Anyway, how good is this card? I don't think it's that great. Aggro decks don't, I mean, it gives aggro decks some late game reach, but it's probably not enough for cost where I'm thrilled about it. So this is a card you never really have to prioritize. There must be some white vampires in this set, obviously. We'll see how many there are. But overall, not a card you have to prioritize, and a card you're easily going to be able to wheel and see late and probably not play that often. All right, next we have Valorous Stance, which is also a reprint. 2 mana, instant, uncommon. So you can either give a creature indestructible or destroy a creature with toughness 4 or greater. I like cards like this. This is a good combination of abilities. Protecting from removal or removing is quite good. How early do you have to pick it? I think you could pick this. I mean, this is quite a bit better than I would say Sun Gold Barrage, which is interesting because Sun Gold Barrage is so much worse than that. So it is common instead of uncommon, but they're both instants. This can also protect something for 1 less mana and destroy a creature with toughness 4 greater. Is this power? No, it's toughness 4 greater. So quite a bit better than Sun Gold Barrage, but I thought, I kind of always felt like Sun Gold Barrage was, there's 2 Boros ones. 2 Boros vampires, is that what you're saying? Valorous Stance, I too think this is a card you're going to want to take pretty early, just because that combination of abilities is very, very good. And the fact that it's monocolor and efficiently costs it at instant speed. So I would say if you're ever getting this, pick 4 or later, you're pretty happy about it. Very, very good card. Obviously a lot better than Sun Gold Barrage. All right, next we have Vampire Slayer. 2 mana, 2/2. When it deals damage to a vampire, destroy that creature. This card is kind of weird. I don't think there's that many. We'll have to see. If there's a lot of huge vampires, it might be okay. But overall, not something you have to prioritize that early. It's playable aggro white card. Probably a good sideboard card in best of 3 and limited. You know, if they have some huge beatdown vamps in their vamp deck. But not a card you have to prioritize early, and you're going to be able to wheel it. All right, next we have Voice of the Blessed. So 2 mana, rare, Spirit Cleric, 2/2. Whenever you gain life, you put a counter on it, a +1/+1 counter, and as long as it has 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Flying and Vigilance. And as long as it has 10 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Indestructible. Wow. Obviously a first pick. Very, very strong card. Yeah, not much to say. I would easily first pick this and be pretty happy about it. Gets huge, and it's got a low cost. Good for aggro, good for mid-range. You're pretty happy about it. All right, next. Wedding Announcement. 3 mana, Enchantment. So at the beginning of your end step, you put an invitation counter on it. If you attacked with 2 or more creatures this turn, you draw a card. Otherwise, you get a 1/1 white human creature token. Then if it has 3 or more invitation counters on it, you transform it, and it transforms into a buff spell. So it works well with itself. It's also white card draw. This is an easy first pick and a very, very, very strong limited card. All right, another white vampire here. We've got a 3 mana, 2/3 flyer. It's rare. Whenever 1 or more other creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Wow. All right. This is easy first pick. This is the white Morbid Opportunist at the right rarity. This card is obviously awesome. Mentor the Meek made you actually pay. This doesn't, although this works. Yeah, this is just a... So they just made a strictly better... Wow, that's funny. So they made us... Oh, no, I guess this you can do multiple times a turn. So it's not strictly better, but... Welcoming Vampire is a extremely strong rare. I would first pick this every time and be happy about it, and end up drawing a bunch of cards in white, which always feels strange, but is always very good. All right, Alchemist Retrieval, 1 mana, instant. You can return a non-land permanent you control for 1 mana, or 2 mana you can return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Playable card. Similar, we can look at this card as similar to Geistwave. Now, after just playing, 90 to 100 plus Innistrad Midnight Hunt drafts, we saw that Geistwave tended to go pretty late in drafts usually, and ended up getting cut from decks, I would say, fairly often. So that doesn't necessarily always translate to other sets, but this is not a card you have to pick super early, and sometimes it's pretty playable and good. You can wheel it often, I would say. All right, next we have Binding Geist. All right, 3 mana, 3/1 Spirit, common. When it attacks, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-0, and then it has Disturb for 2, and you permanently give a creature -2/-0. I really like this card. It's a very, very strange power toughness for a blue creature at the rarity and cost and everything. So the whole look of it is quite strange. But I like this card. I think it's very good. The fact that you can attack into things and make combat situations more difficult for your opponent is quite good. I can see it being similar to Nubbleghast Intruder. Definitely, with the -2/-0, but the fact that it's a 3/1, there's not a lot of 3/1 blue creatures, are there? I really can't even think of any other non-rare 3/1 blue creatures. This might be the first time someone can, I'm sure, find the card that I'm not thinking of, but very unusual to see common 3/1s in blue, I think. I'm just not thinking of any right away. This is a very good card. I would pick this pretty early. And I like it quite a bit. So I would say you can pick this fairly early and be happy about it, honestly. Probably if you're seeing it, once again, pick 4 or later, you're pretty happy. Happy to take it and play it. Good beater. Think how good it gets in multiples, too. Very cool. All right, next we have Biolume Egg. It sort of does feel like an uncommon, I agree. 3 mana, 0/4 defender. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. When you sacrifice it, return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Okay, so it transforms when it's sacrificed. That's important to note. Not when it dies. You have to sacrifice it. Then it comes back as a 4/4 serpent, and you can sack 2 lands and make it unblockable. Interesting card. Overall, I don't know how to feel about it. If there's a lot of sacrifice effects, it could be quite good. Something I wouldn't pick super early because it is a bit of a build around unless you're happy just having a 0/4 that scries 2. But if you have sacrifice effects, you're feeling pretty good about it because a 4/4 that lets you occasionally get in unblockable for the win is quite good. So not something I would think you're going to pick that often. Pack 1, pick 1. But packs 2 and 3, if you already have sacrifice effects, you're really happy to have it. And maybe that's the beauty of cards like these. They tend to go later in packs 2 and 3 because they're specific to an archetype. And if you're already in that archetype, it's a huge, big gain. So something to keep in mind with cards like that. All right, next we have a Mythic. I anticipate it being a pack 1, pick 1. I haven't read it yet. 3 mana, 2/3 flying, Cemetery Illuminator. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you exile a card from a graveyard. You can look at the top card of your library at any time, and then once each turn, you can cast a spell from the top of your library if it shares a card type with a card exiled with it. So we've seen this effect on a few Mythics already. So you get to exile a card from a graveyard when it enters the battlefield and when it attacks, so you get to keep doing it. This card is an insane pack 1, pick 1. I can already tell you that, but it lets you look at the top card of your library and cast spells that share card types with cards exiled with it. This is an incredibly strong card. I could see this card being constructed playable. I'm probably wrong because constructed is usually just deteriorated into overpowered nonsense, but this feels like a card that should be constructed playable because of how good it is, where you're getting free spells, basically. Very, very good card. All right, Chill of the Grave. We got a 3 mana instant. It costs 1 less if you control a zombie. It taps a creature. It doesn't untap, draw a card. I really like this card. They're comparing it to Crippling Chill. The beauty of this card is it's strictly better than Crippling Chill because it just gets a reduced cost if you control a zombie. I think this is very good. How early do you take it? I'm not sure. It's not something you're necessarily going to want to be first picking, I would say. But if you're ever wheeling it, I would say you're quite happy because tap doesn't untap, instant speed, draw is a lot of goodness, especially if you can cast it for 2 mana. None of the zombies in this set have Decayed either. Something to note. Decayed was specific to Innistrad Midnight Hunt. All right, Cobbled Lancer is next. So 1 mana 3/3, but a zombie horse, uncommon. But as an additional cost, you have to exile a creature card from your graveyard. Then you can exile it from your graveyard and draw a card. This is a yeah, relatively high pick, John. I would say that's probably true. Relatively high pick meaning if you're picking it, pick 4, 5, 6, you're feeling pretty good. If you're ever wheeling it, you're feeling great that you're probably making the right draft color choice. Cobbled Lancer, I don't know how to feel about this one either. I think it's quite good. Paying 1 mana for a 3/3, you can't cast it on turn 1. But being able to exile it from your graveyard to draw a card is actually very good. So, how early do you pick this? I'm not exactly sure. That's tough to say. You're going to get creature cards in your graveyard fairly often. This does not synergize well with the disturb creatures because you have to exile them, so you're not going to get the aura value. But I would say overall, you're probably going to be able to take this card mid, and sometimes you're going to be able to wheel it if the archetype is open and be happy about it. But overall, I think it's actually a pretty good card. Converting 1 mana 3/3s into extra card draw later is pretty good. And I would say the additional cost is not horrible. And there's not many points in the game where a 3/3 is bad. I will say that as well. So I would say you could probably pick Cobbled Lancer fairly early and not feel terrible about it. All right, Consuming Tide, 4 mana, sorcery, rare. Each player chooses a non-land permanent they control. Return all non-land permanents not chosen this way to their owner's hands. Then you draw a card for each opponent who has more cards in their hand than you. Weird, rare. How early do you pick it? I'm not sure. It's a non-land permanent they control too, so you can reset your disturb auras back into creatures. Draw a card. So it takes a little bit of setup. I don't think this is something you have to slam dunk first pick. They get to choose too, and you have to bounce something as well. Bit of a build around. I would say this is not a slam dunk first pick rare, but it is a rare I'm interested in trying. Hey, Cyrana, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. All right, next we have Cradle of Safety. All right, 2 mana, Flash Aura. When it enters the battlefield, enchanted creature gains hexproof until end of turn and gets buffed. So this is actually a good card. It's got Flash. It turns your creature into a baby. No, I'm just kidding. It buffs and it gives hexproof. So protection from removal and a buff. Pretty good. Oof, that sounds rough. Well, I hope everything's going better now. I'm glad you're recovering. Yeah, saliva gland infection does not sound nice. How early do you take this card? I'm not sure. I think you're going to be able to wheel this, and I actually think this card is very playable. They burn your creature in response. It doesn't die and it's buffed, or combat situation where they're expecting to trade. How about I buff it instead, and your guy dies, and my guy's permanently bigger now. I like this card. I think you're going to be able to wheel it, and I think it's actually pretty playable. Yeah, I was hoping that too, Mike, but you're actually going to see Hexproof pop up at least a couple times in this format, or in this set, I should say. All right, Cruel Witness. It's a 2/2 blue, 3/3 flying bird horror. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. This is actually a surprisingly good card. It's an evasive beater for a good cost, and you don't have to mill yourself either. You're right, it is Surveil. It's Surveil without being called Surveil. This is actually going to be pretty highly playable, and it makes your card quality better. And sometimes it actually gives you additional spells out of your graveyard too, if you mill something that you can use out of your graveyard. Like even Cruel Witness with like Cobbled Lancer, a non-disturb card. Now you just get an extra card draw for 4 mana out of your graveyard. So I like this card. I think you can pick it fairly early because it's evasive as well, even though it's a 4 mana spell. So if you're ever seeing this late, you're pretty happy. And if you're seeing it early, I would say you could pick it and feel pretty good about it. I'll be right back. I'm just going to grab some water because I've been talking like crazy here. All right, back. So I know if you're like me, you thought, how could there possibly be more mechanics in this format? But there are. We are back with Exploit, which was a pretty cool mechanic. I think we saw back... Does anybody remember what set it was from? Was it the second time Innistrad came back? Or... No, it had to do with Eldrazi, I believe. I might be wrong, but I think that's right. I think it was some set involving Eldrazi, but I can't remember. Oh, you're right. I'm thinking of Emerge. Well, was Exploit in a core set? It might have been in a core set. Am I just wrong on all counts? Let's just go through Diver's Scab here. 5 mana, 3/5 Exploit. So Exploit is when this creature enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. So this is 5 mana, 3/5. If you exploit it, you target creature's owner puts it on the bottom or top of its library. So it's basically 2 cards in one. It's a combination of a 5 mana, 3/5 and a Griptide or the Revenge of the Damned that we saw from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. I think this card is very powerful. 3/5 body is good. Exploiting is not terribly difficult, especially if you have tokens, and making them put it on the top or bottom of the library also gets rid of their draw step or gets rid of a creature permanently. So I really like this card. I would say this is a card you can feel very comfortable picking early, and if you have to play it as a 5 mana 3/5, you're not feeling that terrible either, because at least a 3/5 can block fairly well. I like this card. All right, next we have Dreadlight Monstrosity. 6 mana, 5/5. It's got Ward 2. It's a crab horror. So there aren't decay creatures anymore, right? In this set. I think all the zombie tokens don't have decay, which was a little bit strange to me, but... Oh, you're thinking of Extort, Mike, which was a ridiculous mechanic. I remember Extort very well. All right, Dreadlight Monstrosity, 6 mana, 5/5, Ward 2. And this is 5 mana. It can't be blocked. but you can only activate it if you own a card in exile, which is interesting. I actually like this card. I think this is a totally fine mid-range finisher. And a 5 power unblockable if you pay 5 can put people away pretty easily. And it's a card you don't have to pick early because it's expensive. So I think this is a card you can wheel, and it's a good finisher for mid-range decks. So how easy is it to exile our own cards? Well, the nice thing is it works well with the disturb cards, because when the disturb cards come back, when they leave, they get exiled instead. So it works with all disturb, and we'll probably see a few more things along the way that it works well with. Well, we're not in removal heavy colors yet, John, so we'll see once we get to like black. I'm not sure yet how blue does it. Well, we saw it with Cobbled Lancer. So it's got great synergy with Cobbled Lancer. You play this, you get to exile it, you get to draw, and now you can make this unblockable. So there are ways to do it in mono blue. But specifically, I was just thinking... yeah, I was basically just thinking the disturb cards in white so far, but we'll see. All right, next we have Dream Shackle Geist. This is a 3-mana 3/1 flyer. After I did say you don't see many blue 3-mana 3/1s or 3/1s in general in blue, but I did say non-rare. I did specify. I don't see it in common that often. So this is a spirit flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you can tap a creature or make a creature not untapped during its controller's next untap step. This is an incredibly strong first drop or first pick card. Very easy first pick, and beats down highly effectively. Super, super strong. All right, next we have an Aura, Fear of Death, 1 and a blue, enchant creature. So when it enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards. An enchanted creature gets -X/-0, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. This card is actually pretty playable. If you have a lot of effects out of your graveyard, it can turn into card draws, and then on top of that, it's a mechanic that permanently weakens something. Typically, these style of cards are good when you have a lot of evasive creatures, because you're weakening their ground creature, and then your flying creatures can just attack from above for good value. Not a card you have to pick super early, but a card that will be pretty good removal for certain decks. A card that I suspect you will be able to wheel fairly often. All right, next we have Geistlight Snare. This is a enchantment removal will be weak in the set with exploit and bounce still existing. That's a good point. I'm more looking at it, I like that it self-mills. In sets like Innistrad, usually self-mill is quite good, as we saw with the farmer, eccentric farmer. I mean, granted, you also get a land out of that, but self-mill was actually playable. And you know, tapping the windows, as terrible as I thought that card was in the beginning of the format, I think it was actually a playable card in the right deck. Certainly not good, and missing on it sucked, but you got to look at a lot of cards, and it self-milled. So anyway, Geistlight Snare, 2 and a blue, instant. Costs 1 less to cast if you control a spirit. It also costs 1 less to cast if you control an enchantment. Interesting card. Typically, for the most part, I don't like counterspells in limited. However, Innistrad Midnight Hunt, counterspells were very, very good. So it's totally dependent on the format itself to determine whether discard or counterspells are good. In my experience, slower formats lend themselves really well to counterspells and discard. Just because it takes them longer to cast spells, so by the time they can, making them pay 3 for it is quite a bit more difficult. and discarding makes them get rid of cards. Oftentimes they're going to have more cards in their hand because their stuff is overall more expensive. So just my 2 cents on it. As far as this card goes, once again, it's going to be dependent on how aggressive or slow this format is to really determine how good this card is. And as of now, that's unclear to me. Next, we have Geralt Visionary Stitcher, 2 and a blue, 1/4, legend, human wizard. Gives all your zombies flying zombies. And sack another non-token creature, and you get to create a zombie where X is a sacrifice creature's toughness. This is a super strong card. I would first pick this and be pretty happy about it. And if you have some fatty toughness creatures, you're making some huge flying fatties too. And the beauty of this card is, in response to removal, you just sack the creature and you make a huge creature. This card is insanely strong. Easy first pick and limited. All right, next we have Gutter Skulker. 4 mana, 3/3. Can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. And you know how much I love Corpse Cobble. Love that card. All right, so 4 mana, 3/3. Can't be blocked as long as it's attacking alone. And then it's got Disturb. Can make something not be able to block as long as it's attacking alone. This card is actually very good. If you have a mid-range strategy, even an aggro strategy, you're okay playing this. I actually like this card a lot. I would probably not first pick this, but pick this fairly early is what I meant to say. Because you can have blockers that stay back, but you're always able to get in with this by itself. I really like that. Is there a movie on the horizon coming out, John? Flying Zombies. That's the next generation of zombie horror films, is flying zombies. They went from shambling to running to flying. Yeah, I don't know how early to pick this. I would pick this fairly early, honestly, even though it's a 4-drop. It's always tougher with the 4-drops. I would say probably after pick 4, you're probably picking it then, but I really do like this card. All right, next. Hullbreaker Horror. 7 mana, 7/8 flash. Can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, you can return a spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. This is a crazy card. It's a 7 mana creature, though. I win the game if you don't have removal. Pretty much. I really like that it can flash out. I mean, if you're going to play a 7-drop, at least it's huge and can flash in and kill one of their huge dudes on blocks. But really cool card. Would you first pick it? This is another one like the counterspells in the discard. Is it a 7 mana format? Are you able to play 7-drops in this format? That remains to be seen. If you can, if it's more of a slow mid-range format, this would probably be a slam first pick and you're happy about it. If it's a quick aggro format, you're just not going to have the time to get this online and win with it. So some of these cards I can't answer until I just play the format and get a good feel for the meta. Next we have Inspired Idea. This is a 3 mana sorcery, rare. It's got Cleave for 5. You get to draw 3 cards, but your maximum hand size is reduced by 3 for the rest of the game if you cast it for its original cost. This is actually a highly playable limited, probably and constructed card actually, depending on the deck. I really like this card, and I would probably still first pick this. This is good card advantage for cost. On both sides, it's still pretty reasonable, so I like this. I would be okay first picking this, honestly. 3 mana, draw 3, even if it reduces your hand size by 3 for the rest of the game, isn't that terrible, especially if it's the last card in your hand. Typically, I'm casting my card draw after I've cast my other spells. You know what I mean? That's not always the case, but especially if the stuff is more expensive in my hand. But usually you're playing creatures, if you can, before you're doing your card draw. All right, next we have Jacob Hauken. Does anybody know how they came up with that name? Is it Jakob, maybe? It's supposed to be some sort of Germanic thing. All right. Let's see. So 2 mana, 0/2. It's a human advisor legend. tap, draw a card, exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay 6. If you do, you can transform it. So just to clarify, can you only use this? You may pay 4 and 2 blue when you use the tap ability. I want to say yes, so I just want to make sure because it's on the same line. It's on the same it's in the same paragraph as the tap ability. So I'm assuming you can only use that pay 6 when you use its tap ability, and it turns into, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at it for as long as it remains exiled, and then once during each of your turns, you may play a land. Yeah, I guess that's a good point, Cyranic. You just need to open this mythic, and then you can exile all you need to. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled with this permanent without paying its mana cost. This is a sweet card. I would first pick this and be pretty happy about it. Pretty cool ability, too. Really cool ability. Nice little looter as well. Jacob Hauken. All right. Is it or? I thought it was and. You may play a land or... Oh, I see. You want to be able to play a land and cast a spell. Well, that's fair. I still like it. Oh, and it's only during your turn. Good to note as well. Thank you. All right, Lantern Bearer, 1 mana, 1/1 flyer. Yeah. I don't know. I'm of the mindset. I'm getting tired of how hard they're pushing cards. It's making limited go real fast. So Lantern Bearer, 1 mana, 1/1 flyer. It's got Disturb for 3, and you can bring it back as a +1/+1 and flying aura. This card is actually very good. Outside of Beatdown decks, I don't know if you want to be playing 1/1 flyers, but if you're in a blue-white skies deck or you're in an aggro deck, I like this card. That aura is very good. So how early do you have to pick it? I don't think it's something you have to pick super early either. You can probably get it mid to late in the draft pack, and you're going to take it and play it if you're Beatdown. I would say still pretty specific to a Beatdown deck, though. You're not thrilled about having this in mid-range. All right, next we have Lunar Rejection. 2 mana instant. You can bounce a creature, a wolf or a werewolf, to its owner's hand and draw, or you can cleave it for 4 and return any creature and draw. I really like this card. This is a great card. It's similar to... Well, I thought they were going to put it on there, but... So obviously against wolf or werewolves, paying 2 mana to bounce and draw is quite good, but paying 4 mana to bounce anything in a pinch and draw, bounce any creature I should say, and draw is very good. I would say this is picked pretty early because it replaces itself. I like it quite a bit. Not necessarily a first pick, but I wouldn't be opposed to this first pick either. I think you could first pick this and feel pretty good about it. Tempo stuff like that draws you a card is very good and limited. All right, Mirror Hall Mimic, 4 mana, 0/0 spirit. You can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield except its spirit in addition to its other types. You feel like all these bounce spells are going to be very good against all the auras running around. That's probably true. That might even make it better. So 4 mana, 0/0. You can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. And then you can pay 5 mana Disturb. And at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted creature. Okay, we get it. It's a pick 1. It's very, very good. A super strong card. Not much else to say. All right, Mischievous Catgeist. 2 mana, 1/1 cat spirit. Look how cute it is. It's playing with its yarn. It's an uncommon. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. Wow, it's a 2-drop too. And then it disturbs, and it gives that effect to another creature in aura form. This card is very good. This might be the first time I've seen a 2 mana non-rare with that ability. Probably not. There's... maybe it is. I like that in the thesaurus, it's comparing it to Lantern Spirit because it has Disturb. Is that why? That's weird. This card's very good. Should you first pick it? I mean, you have to accept that it's a 1/1, so it's not going to be able to get in. It has no evasion on its own. But if you have a bunch of tempo-based stuff, you're getting in there and feeling real good about it. And if you're ever just getting cards off your 2-drop, that your non-rare 2-drop like that, this can easily take the game over in the right tempo-based deck. So I think this is a good card. Yeah, if you're playing tempo cards, though, this thing's going to get in there and get a lot of value for you. Well, if you have creatures with evasion or you have a lot of bounce effects, this is very, very good. I'm just thinking about other tempo-based archetypes in Limited that played cards similar to this. And really, another beauty of this card is, say you play this on turn 2 and your opponent plays a 2-drop. Then on your turn 3, you leave open mana and pass. On their turn, say they play a 3-drop. Are they going to attack with their 2-drop? That's pretty dangerous if they do, right? What if they attack with their 2-drop and then you tap down their 3-drop, draw a card, and then on your turn get in and draw another card? You're getting them pretty good. So this kind of puts the fear of them too when you play it early. I like it. I think it's a very good card. All right, Necro Duality. 4 mana enchantment. Whenever a non-token zombie enters the battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Pretty specific to zombies. This is not a rare that, it's a mythic? It's weird that, I don't know why they would, this doesn't feel mythic to me at all. Does this feel mythic to you guys? Feels pretty standard rare to me. I probably wouldn't first pick this too often, but since it's pretty build around, feels mythic in your commander deck. Yeah, this is not a card I would probably first pick too often, but if you're already in zombies and you get past it, which I think is going to happen fairly often, it is mythic, so I guess not that often. You're going to take it and probably play it. All right, next we have Overcharged Amalgam. We've got 4 mana, 3/3 flash flying with exploit, and then when you exploit a creature, you get to counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. This is a card I could see seeing constructed play because you get a body out of it too. And it can sack itself. Something to keep in mind. So at worst, it's a 4 mana counter spell, which is playable. At best, it's a 4 mana 3/3 flash flyer that also lets you... you can even block with something, flash us in, sack the creature you're jumping with, and counter some spell, possibly if they do a combat trick. So it gives you some good options. I think this card is an easy first pick and possibly could see constructed play. But don't quote me on constructed play. I know nothing about it. 2 mana, 1/2 zombie horror, patchwork crawler. You pay 2 and a blue, you exile a creature card from your graveyard, and you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is another card that lets you exile in blue. It has all activated abilities of all creatures' cards exiled with it. So kind of a cool card. It does at least get bigger with any creature, and gaining all activated abilities can be relevant. Would this be a card you'd first pick? I think so. I think I'm okay first picking this because even though you can only exile from your graveyard, you get additional use out of those creatures, and it's something that, I mean, a 2 mana 1/2 is not that great, but all activated abilities, you can sort of build around this. You probably want, I don't think it's a hard no. It depends on, I need to know what kind of activated abilities I'm looking for, because it's not triggered ability either. It's activated abilities. I have to look around. Well, it doesn't gain flying though, right? Because flying's not an activated ability. So it only gains certain abilities, which makes it pretty strange. And maybe you're right. Maybe not a first pick because of that. This is just an odd card. I don't know where to pick that. I have to look at... No, flying is just a ability. Static ability. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I have to look at more activated abilities to really decide on that card. All right, next is Repository Scab. We've got a 4-mana 3/3 common zombie. It's got exploit. When it exploits a creature, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. This is a good card. Good common. You do have to sack a creature to get the full value, but I would still say you can pick this fairly early and be happy about it, especially if you have good instants and sorceries. I like it. All right, next we have Scattered Thoughts. 4-mana instant. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. Top 4, 2 in your hand, rest in your graveyard, instant speed. This is totally playable. You can end up getting potentially 4 effects, 2 in your graveyard and 2 in your hand. So how early to pick it? I don't think you need to first pick it, but you can get it. This card you can probably wheel, actually, and be happy to play. Good card advantage out of it. You have to look at the top 4, too, which is pretty good. All right, next we have Screaming Swarm. This is a 6-mana, 4/4 bird horror. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, target player mills that many cards. Wow, that's insane. And then you can put it from your graveyard on top of your library, second to the top. So it saves itself, and then whenever... Yeah, this is a cool card. Good uncommon. Can you imagine how this stacks if you get it in multiples, too? So in limited, obviously, you can mill them out quite easily. This feels like a card you could probably first pick, too, honestly, and be happy about it, even though it's a 6-drop. It's a huge flyer. Can kill them in multiple ways and can save itself from removal. I like it. All right, next we have Selhoff and Tumor. 2-mana 1/3 zombie. It's a common. You can discard a creature card to draw a card. So definitely not a loot or a rummage. Quite a bit worse. You have to discard creatures in order to draw off of it, but it does feel like an ability that occasionally would be relevant. If you're short on lands in hand, this is probably an important card to have. It's not a card you have to pick early either, because it's certainly worse than a loot, and it's only a 1/3. But I actually think this card is surprisingly okay. Once again, if you're desperate for land, this is an important card to help you get there. All right, next, Serpentine Ambush. 2-mana instant. Yeah, it does enable that, John. That's a good point. And they're both zombies, too. Serpentine Ambush, 2-mana instant common. Until in turn, target creature becomes a blue serpent with base power and toughness 5/5. I typically don't play these cards. I think they're really not all that great. You're going to be able to get it last pick pretty frequently. And the only time it's... I mean, it lets you get in extra damage sometimes. It lets you turn your dudes into better blockers sometimes. But overall, just not an effect I like all that much. All right, Skywarp Scab. 5-mana, 2/5, flying zombie. Hey, more flying zombies. Great. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile 2 creature cards from your graveyard. If you do, draw a card. 5-mana, 2/5, flyer. When it enters the battlefield, exile 2 creature cards from your graveyard. If you do, draw a card. This is a great card. It's a 5-mana, 2/5 flyer, which isn't the best body for price, but being able to draw a card off of it is actually very relevant. I like this card. I don't think it's one you have to pick super early either, but I think it's actually very playable. All right, next we've got Soul Cipher Board. 2 mana, uncommon artifact. Enters the battlefield with 3 omen counters on it. 2 and tap, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your graveyard. Whenever a creature card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, remove an omen counter from it. Then if it has no more omen counters on it, transform it. And it turns into a 3/2 flyer that can only block creatures with flying. And then you can pay 4 and draw 2, discard. This is a cool card. I actually like this card. I think it's very playable. It's pretty reasonably priced too. I don't know how early you have to take this, but it turns into a pretty relevant creature too. I don't know how early you take this. This is probably something you can take in the middle of a pack, and it probably makes your deck. I kind of like it. Steelclad Spirit, 2 mana, 3/3 defender. Whenever an enchantment enters battlefield under your control, it can attack as though it didn't have defender. So this is obviously playable. And at the very least for a mid-range deck, it's a pretty good body to defend yourself with. But outside of that, really not that great. And something you're going to be able to wheel fairly often, I suspect. Next we have Stitched Assistant, 3 mana, 3/2, exploit. When it exploits a creature, scry 1, draw. This is a great card. Yeah, just convert one of your creatures that's irrelevant into a scry draw is very good. I like this card. This is a great common. I would think you can pick this earlier mid of a pack and feel pretty good about it. And it's got a creepy picture. All right, Storm Chaser Drake, 2 mana, 2/1 flyer. When it becomes the target of a spell you control, draw a card. This is insanely strong just for the fact that it's a 2 mana, 2-power flyer. Yeah, I agree, Cyrana. This is probably a card you could first pick, seeing as it's just 2 mana, 2-power flyer. I mean, even if it didn't have more, effects on top of that, this would already be very good. Next we have Syncopate, which is a reprint. So this is a counterspell, 1 blue and X instant. Counter a spell unless its controller pays X. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So exile effect is relevant in a set that has to do with graveyards, graveyard value effects. So I like Syncopate. I think it's a pretty playable counterspell in limited and in constructed. And it's not a card you have to pick super early either. Might not always wheel, but it can wheel, and you're probably taking it and playing it when it does. Siphon Essence, 2 and a blue, instant. Counter a creature or planeswalker spell, create a blood token. So once again, we see blood tokens. So this counters creatures, and you get a blood token. Not a phenomenal card. A card I imagine will pop up. That's a good point, SD. But yeah, in general, that 2/1 flyer is very good. This is a card you don't have to take early. You can get it late. It probably won't make your deck all that often. Playable, not great. Maybe once we get through blue, I can do a draft. Just sort of break this up a little bit, because this is intense how many cards there are. All right, next we have Thirst for Discovery. 2 and a blue, instant, draw 3, discard 2 unless you discard a basic land. All right, this card's very good. In limited, you're playing almost all basic lands, I imagine. It's probably going to be pretty unusual you have a non-basic. So this is essentially 3 mana, draw 3, discard a land. Sometimes you have to discard 2 if you need a land, but this card's very, very strong card draw at uncommon, and I think you could first pick this and not feel bad at all. Good card advantage. All right, next we have Wanderlight Spirit. This is a 3 mana, 2/3 flyer. It can only block creatures with flying. Still playable. Beatdown Spirit. Blue-white skies would like this card. Makes it, having 3 toughness is less relevant when it can only block flyers, but still pretty playable card. Not something you have to pick super early, seeing as it can't block non-flyers. Next we have a Wash Away. So 1 blue, instant, uncommon. You can counter a spell that wasn't cast from its owner's hand. That's pretty rarely going to come up in Limited. Probably won't even come up all that often in Constructed either. But then it's a 3 mana. It's basically a cancel that's also for 1 mana. Counter spell that wasn't cast from its owner's hand. In general, not a card I would highly prioritize. Even Dissipate in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, I didn't prioritize too super highly. And I would say this is worse than that. I guess that's true. It counters... well, counter a spell that wasn't cast from its owner's hand. Is Disturb a spell, or is it a... I have to read it. It probably is, but I was thinking it's like an activated ability. And if it's an activated ability, you're not really casting it. I don't know. I have to read it. Whispering Wizard. 4 mana, 3/2 wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. This is a super strong card. These types of cards, like Murmuring Mystic, are usually incredibly strong and limited and worth building around just from the sheer value that you get out of it. So I would say Whispering Wizard is totally worthy of a first pick and powerful enough to build around it and feel pretty good. All right, next we have Winged Portent, 3 mana, instant rare. Draw a card for each creature with flying you control for that. Or the cleave cost, draw a card for each creature you control. Pretty cool card. Do you have to first pick this? I don't think so. I mean, you need a bunch of creatures or a bunch of flyers to get value off of it. Well, I kind of cheated Cyrana. They had the little portrait of it underneath the card, but I appreciate that. Winged Portent. I think Murmuring Mystic was better than that other dude too, but still, that other dude is very good too. Overall, I don't think you need to first pick this. I think if you're already in the archetype and it's past you, you're pretty happy. Next we have Witness the Future. 2 and a blue, sorcery uncommon. Target player shuffles up to 4 target cards from their graveyard into their library. You may look at the top 4 cards of your library, then put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Oh, I see what you're saying, Cyrana. Murmuring Mystic, Whispering Wizard. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. They are kind of similar. All right, let's read this again. Sorry, Witness the Future. 3 mana, sorcery, uncommon. Target player shuffles up to 4 target cards from their graveyard into their library. You may look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put one of those cards in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Weird card. So it gets you 1 card off the top 4, but you can shuffle up to 4 cards from a graveyard into their library. Weird uncommon. I agree, Andrew. Good against graveyard value effects. This feels like a card you could main deck. It doesn't necessarily feel uncommon to me, but not a card you have to first pick, that's for sure. And finally, in blue, we have Wretched Throng. 2 mana, 2/1 zombie horror. When it dies, you may search your library for a card named Wretched Throng, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. So that's what you're thinking in progress, the self-mill decks. Well, the original Innistrad did have a good self-mill strategy. Yeah, Wretched Throng, I'm not really feeling all that great about. It's cool that you can get value off of it, but overall, I don't think it's that good, even though it's a zombie. Simic, this set has self-mill. Well, what would you guys like me to do? Would you like me to draft or keep going on card evaluations? We're only 2 colors down. It took probably at least an hour and a half. It takes quite a bit of time to go through all of these. I'll let you guys decide. Do black then draft? Okay, fair enough. Well, let's do aim for the head. All right, 2 and a black sorcery. Exile zombie or target opponent exiles 2 cards from their hand. This card's actually pretty playable. Exiling cards from their hand is better. Oh, that's kind of cool, Siren. That's a good idea. It's like practice. Do you know how to set that up? Because I don't. This is not a card you have to pick early, and it's a very good sideboard card. All right, Archghoul of Thraben. 2 and a black, 3/2 zombie, uncommon. When it or another zombie you control dies, look at the top card of your library. If it's a zombie, you can reveal it, put it in your hand. If you don't put the card in your hand, you can put it in your graveyard. This is a cool card. Good black card draw value or card quality increaser. I think this is great value. It is sort of a bit of a build around, but I think it's probably worth building around with black card advantage that doesn't come with that much of a cost if you have quite a few zombies in your deck. So, and the fact that even if you don't have zombies, you can just mill extra lands you don't need. I really like this card. I think it's quite good. I think you could pick it very early. Feel good about it. I'd do draft. Well, can you draft sim the new set? Or is that... If we could do the new set, that would be cool. Let's do Bleed Dry. So, 4 mana instant. Target creature gets -13/-13 till in turn. If that creature would die this turn, exile instead. This is a highly playable card. It's going to kill... Oh, that's cool. It's going to kill things almost every time. I can't think of anything that it probably wouldn't kill. All right, well, we can do some draft sims then. Maybe that'll break this up a little bit, because just reading 1,000 cards takes a lot of time here. All right. Let's do some Crimson Vow drafts, all right? That'll be a fun way to do this. All right, so maybe we just read them this way. All right, Bloodveil Purveyor. This is a 4 mana. Yeah, totally, Andrew. All right, 4 mana, 5/6 flying trample. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player creates a blood token. Whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+0 for each blood token defending player controls. This card, easy first pick. If that wasn't in here, let's look at some other ones. So Oakshade Stalker. Oh, good, it shows the other half too. So this is a 3 mana 3/3. You can cast it as though it had flash if you pay 2 more. So it can be a 5 mana 3/3 flash, which is good. And then it's got Nightbound as a 6/3. This is a good card. I could see picking that fairly early too. We already saw Witness the Future. We have Wandering Mind, which is 3 mana 2/1 flyer. Yes, easy first pick with Bloodvial Purveyor. We can look at the other cards though. Wandering Mind is a 3 mana 2/1 flying horror. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 of your library. You can reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them. Put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. It's a cool card. Non-creature, non-land, so you can get spells off it, and it's evasive. That's a great card, too. Wandering Mind I like a lot. Spore Crawler, 3 mana, 3/2. When it dies, draw a card. That's a great effect. I think Spore Crawler is a great card. Trades with a lot of things and draws you a card. Really, really good value on that. Really, this is super strong. I think Spore Crawler is a super strong common. Diregraph Scavenger, 4 mana, 2/3, Death Touch Zombie Bear. When it enters battlefield, exile up to one target card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Exile up to one target card from a graveyard if a creature card was exiled this way. So this is a great card too. This is totally... Spore Crawler reminds me of the thing from Kaldheim. What's the thing from Kaldheim that you could foretell for 2 that was a 3/3? The Packmaster, the wolf, that was a 3/3 wolf for 4, or you could foretell it for 2 and it came in and drew you a card right away. That card was insanely strong too. I mean, granted, that was when it entered the battlefield, but I would think, yeah, Spore Crawler's going to be up there. Yeah, Serap's Packmate. Great call. Scavenger is a great card too. I really like it. And this lets you exile from any graveyard. This card is so good. Scavenger is really, really good. I thought this only let you do it from your graveyard. I really like the Scavenger. All right, next we have Fear of Death. We already saw that one. Courier Bat. This is a 3 mana 2/2 flyer. When it enters battlefield or regain life this turn, return up to one target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is a cool card. It synergizes well with life gain, and it's got evasion in black and a pretty reasonable cost. And if you're getting a Gravedigger effect out of it, you're feeling pretty good. Next we have Lightning Wolf, 4 mana 4/3 wolf that can gain first strike, but you can only activate it as a sorcery. This is a good card too. I do like that. Yeah, I like Lightning Wolf. It's a 4-drop, so you don't have to take it super early, but I think that effect is actually pretty good for beating down. 4 mana, 4 power first strike is good. I mean, granted, you can only do it as a sorcery, but that's not even that much of a downside. Next is Perish Blade Trainee. 2 mana, 1/2. It's got training. When it dies, put its counters. We saw that one already. Crushing Canopy. This has always been more of a sideboard card, although in this set, once again, they're heavy with the enchantments. I would still say this is probably just a sideboard card, but a good sideboard card nonetheless. We already saw Aim for the Head and talked about it. Honored Heirloom, 3 mana. Artifact, tap, add a mana of any color, or 2 and tap, exile target card from your graveyard. That's actually a cool card. I would say, once again, this is more of a sideboard card, but pretty good card for sideboard if they're graveyard heavy. I like it. It's a little bit clunky, I guess, but it does the trick. And next we have Fearful Villager. This is a 3 mana 2/3 menace, and it turns into a 4/3 menace. Totally playable. This is almost the same thing as the Shady Traveler from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, except in red, and it turns into a 4/3 instead of a 4/4. But that card was still very playable, and I suspect that one is too. All right, well, easy purveyor there. All right, follow-up pick. So we can look at the black cards first. What would we want to... We'd want to follow up with a black card if we took a black card, so let's look at them. We've got Ragged Recluse. 2 mana, 2/1. At the beginning of your end step, if you discard a card, you can transform it, and it turns into a 3/3 that whenever it attacks, it drains. That's pretty good. I like that. How often are you going to be able to discard? I'm not exactly sure. Or we have Pointed Discussion, which is a 3 mana sorcery. Draw 2, lose 2, then create a blood token. If I hadn't... can we go back a pick? Does it let you do that? I probably would have picked... On the surface, I want to say I would have picked that Spore Crawler, because I really think that card is that good. 3 mana, 3/2 that dies and draws. I'd have to look again, though. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. I'll do that from now on. That's a good call. Pointed Discussion seems like it's playable. 3 mana, draw 2, lose 2, create a blood token. I do like this Ragged Recluse, but I have to see how often you can... Good call, Progress. Good call. Good synergy with the blood tokens. Okay. I mean, you got plenty of blood token synergies in black. We already see it with the Blood Vial Purveyor, although this just gives it to your opponents, but whatever. All right, let's look at Howling Moon. So 3 mana enchantment at the beginning of combat on your turn. Target wolf or werewolf you control gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, create a wolf. Howling Moon. I mean, if you're in Wolves and Werewolves, you're going to like it. It's a little bit of a weird build around. and I don't think your opponents are going to cast 2 spells in 1 turn too terribly many times in a game. It's certainly not when you have this enchantment out, but it seems playable, not that exciting. Next we have Gutter Skulker, which we already saw and I like. Markov Retribution, 3 mana sorcery. Creatures you control get +1/+0, or target vampire you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. Good for a vampire deck. Not amazing outside of that. Well, you don't have to be in a vampire deck for this card to be busted good. Yeah, I mean, you could be completely non-vampire and still annihilate your opponent with that. This kind of feels more like a demon to me than a vampire, just based on power, toughness, and abilities. We already saw Geistlight Snare. We've got Flourishing Hunter, 6 mana, 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to the greatest toughness among other creatures you control. This is a weird card. I don't think it's that great because it can't even do it to itself, oddly enough. And it's only 1 creature, the greatest toughness among... Wait, the greatest toughness among other creatures you control. So it's just 1 other creature with the greatest toughness. This isn't that great. Chill of the Grave is good. I really like that. We've got In the Festivities, 1 mana, sorcery. Deals 1 damage to each opponent, each creature, and planeswalker they control. It's probably more a sideboard card. Fierce Retribution is good removal. I could see taking that. There's also Griff Rider, which has training, Fear of Death, and Massive Might. Here I'd probably go Fierce Retribution. It is in a second color, but I don't think the black cards are better enough than straight up just some pretty hard removal, both efficiently and slower costed. So I would take the Fierce Retribution as a follow-up pick, and if that wasn't in here, I'd probably take the Ragged Recluse, because I do think Ragged Recluse is fine, as Progress mentioned. As Progress mentioned, good with the blood tokens. That is cool. All right, let's take Retribution. And just to let you guys know, Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, and their logos are trademarks of Wizards of the Coast LLC, 2021 Wizards, all rights reserved. The copyright for the Magic... All right, you got it. All right, next. In black, we have Grisly Ritual. Destroy target creature or planeswalker, create 2 blood tokens. So it's a little bit expensive, but it is removal. Or Ragged Recluse again. Otherwise, we have Inspired Idea, which we did talk about and is in there. Let's look at what we have in white here. We have the Dawnheart Geist for some life gain value. We have Traveling Minister, which we saw and I kind of like. Heron of Hope, Heron Blessed. So, Blessed Geist. Pretty good cards there overall. Flame Blessed Bolt, 1 mana, 2 damage to target creature, planeswalker, and exiles. That's pretty cool too. Apprentice Sharpshooter, 3 mana, 1/4 Reach Training. I like this card too. And then we have the Syncopate. So, I kind of like Grisly Ritual. It's expensive, but if this format is slower, it's actually just fine as a kill spell, because you get 2 blood tokens out of it too. Especially good if we can wheel those Ragged Recluses. Otherwise, Flame Blessed Bolt is probably the best card in the pack, just as a 1 mana kill spell that exiles. So good against disturbed creatures. I mean, it's early enough in the draft, I could do that. I think the 2 most powerful cards in here for me are the Ritual and the Bolt. And I probably go with the slightly less powerful Ritual, even though it's quite a bit more expensive, just because it's on color with our Purveyor, and it is pretty hard removal, so I guess I'll take it. All right, next. So in black, we have the Scavenger, and we have the Ragged Recluse. In white, we have Supernatural Rescue, which we saw is pretty cool. Lantern of the Lost enters, exile a card from a graveyard. And okay, this is more of a sideboard card. Okay, I like the Stitch Assistant. Good note, Cyrana. We've got Scattered Thoughts, Bloody Betrayal. Gain control of target creature until in turn, untap it, gains haste, and you get to create a blood token. So, okay. It's a steal creature effect. Spore Crawler's in here, which is very good. I think I'm going to go with the Scavenger here. If the Scavenger wasn't in here, I'd probably take the Recluse. Both the black cards are quite good. Pyre Spawn is pretty cool too. I haven't seen this one yet, but 6 mana, 6/4. When it dies, deals 3 damage to any target. That's pretty cool. And then Ancestral Anger is 1 plus the number of cards named Ancestral. So this is an aggro card. You don't have to pick early, but if no one's going down that path, you can end up with like 5 or 6 of them, and you're feeling really good. Otherwise, not that desirable of a card. But Diregraph Scavenger to me seems very, very strong. So I'll take that. All right. Now we have Doom Dissenter, which is another reprint. 2 mana, 1/1. When it dies, create a zombie, 2/2 zombie. Another Grisly Ritual in here. In white, we have Militia Rallier and Kindly Ancestor, both of which are pretty good. And we have Evolving Wilds again. I didn't realize that was back either. Oakshade Stalker. So we saw that one. Cartographer's Survey. 4 mana. Look at the top 7 of your library. Put 2 land cards. So it ramps twice from the top 7, but it doesn't put the rest in your graveyard. Maybe you probably wouldn't want to with that many cards in limited. I like Doom Dissenter in general. 2 bodies in 1 is quite good. As of now, I kind of feel like continuing to go down the black path is probably the safest way to do it. We can probably end up with too many Grisly Rituals if I take a second one. Then we're up to 2 6 mana removal spells already without any like in-game removal. It might be smart to just take the Dissenter, or I could just take the Evolving Wilds and get a free fixer that maybe, 100% makes the deck. It makes your more hands keepable. And if I'm giving up these, it's not the end of the world. I do think the Ancestor is pretty good, and the Rallier. I'm kind of okay going Evolving Wilds here. It may seem a little bit early, but I play multiple Evolving Wilds and I don't really care. And the fact that it might make me able to splash kind of makes it a little more desirable too. 2 Grisly Rituals seems a bit excessive. I probably only need 1. It depends on how good this card ends up playing. I mean, I do like that I don't know how good blood tokens are yet. I think rummage effects are fine. So maybe Ritual is good enough to take this early. I'd probably go Ritual, and my second pick is Evolving Wilds or Doom Dissenter because I think they're good too. But well, it's tough. It depends. This is another question. How fast is the format? If the format is fast, Grisly Ritual is going to be worse. If the format is slow, Grisly Ritual is going to be good. So it's very format dependent. All right, well, in black, we have Persistent Specimen, which is a 1 mana 1/1 that comes back from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I like it. Also good discard fodder for Grisly Ritual. Rot-Tide Gargantua, 5 mana, 5/4 exploit. And then when you exploit a creature, each opponent sacks a creature. It's pretty sweet. I like that. Groom's Finery. So this is the one with the Bride's Gown. I don't think this cycle is that great. And then we've got Honeymoon Hearse. 3 mana, 3/3, or 3 mana, 5/5 trample vehicle. Tap 2 untapped creatures you control. And it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So it doesn't even have crew. That's a weird one. Hungry Ridge Wolf, 2 mana, 2/2. As long as you control another wolf or werewolf, it gets +1/+0 and has trample. That's good for wolf and werewolf decks. I'm probably going Gargantua and feeling pretty good about it. I like this card. Probably could even wheel maybe an Honored Heirloom with all this expensive stuff and be okay. We'll see. Gargantua feels good though. All right, next we have some red cards here. So got the In the Festivities. We have Valdarin Epicure, 1 mana 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you get to create a blood token. Oh, it's more of an aggro card. Fearful Villager we saw earlier. I like this card. Or we take Toxic Scorpion, 2 mana 1/1 Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, another target creature you control gains Death Touch until end of turn. Not super relevant for what we're trying to do, but probably the best card in here based on how expensive our stuff is. I kind of like taking the Toxic Scorpion, or Fearful Villager would be a totally fine pick too, because a 4/3 Menace is pretty good. This is not as good as Shady Traveler, though. I'd much rather have the The difference between a 4-3 and a 4-4, I would say, is pretty significant. I'd probably just take the Toxic Scorpion and feel pretty good about it. Good exploit target sometimes too, if you need to. All right. So nothing in black. Pirate Spawn in red. Probably take one of the white cards here, and it's probably the Griff Rider. Despite the fact that we're looking like a slower deck, Griff Rider is just awesome evasive creature. Could take the lifelinker to buy some time though. And the Disturb is pretty relevant for us, actually. Putting it on any of these, any fatties we end up with, Purveyor or Gargantua. Also, potential sack fodder, exploit fodder in a pinch. I could see taking the Ancestor over the Griff Rider based on what we already have, because we're looking a little bit slower, and the lifelink is probably pretty important. So I'm okay taking the Ancestor here, I guess. Even though I think Griff Rider overall value is higher, we're looking a little bit more like a mid-range deck. Okay, so Aim for the Head is more of a sideboard card. Perish Blade Trainee is a 2-mana 1/2 trainer. Probably just take the sideboard card here. I'm going to take Aim for the Head sideboard because I don't think Trainee is what we're looking for in this deck. It's a little bit too aggro. Okay, so we could take the Griff Rider now, probably over the pointed discussion. Chill of the Grave this late is kind of surprising. It's actually very, very good. We do have some zombies already too. I could see taking Chill of the Grave. It's quite a bit better than Griff Rider for our deck. So I'd probably take Chill, especially since it's this late. So we take Syncopate now, or we could stick with the black-white plan if we wanted to. I like the Geist. How do I feel about Dawnheart Geist for here? Well, really don't have that many enchantments yet, just like the Ancestor. There are some late white stuff, which is a good sign for white, but it was just a late Chill of the Grave. I mean, I assume the bots are just random picking. But I don't know. You all probably know better than I do how they pick. I could take Syncopate here and be okay with it. But Dawnheart Geist for life gain value potential plan is not bad either. I see. Well, I'm going to take Dawnheart Geist. We don't have a lot of value with it yet, but there was nothing in there that was super interesting, so I'm okay with it. We already have quite a few expensive things, so a 2-mana blocker is not bad either. Serpentine Ambush in blue. We've kind of already spread out quite a few colors, so... Alright, and then we'll just take the Rallier, and alright. Got some pretty good stuff there. So in black and white, we've got Distracting Geist. 3 mana, 2/1 when it attacks. I really like this card a lot. I think it's good. This isn't the right deck for it, but I do think it's a great card. Bloodcrazed Socialite, 4 mana, 3/3 menace. You get a blood token, and when it attacks, you can sacrifice a blood token and pump it. That's pretty cool. Oh, that's kind of cool. The Suggest. What's Aruth do? 3 mana, 2/4. If you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. You may play those cards this turn. It's pretty awesome. Good card. Got the Nurturing Presence, Vampire Slayer. Daybound, Nightbound creature. Disciple. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, it gets temporarily buffed. So based on our deck, I would probably go Distracting Geist. Even though it's more of an aggro card in general, I do think it's probably just that good as like an attack tapper. So I'd probably go Distracting Geist. Looks like they agree with that. So, oh, no, they said Blood Crazed Socialite is better than Distracting Geist. Interesting. I like the Socialite too. Sacking blood tokens to pump it is pretty cool. I think I'd still go Geist though. All right. All right, next we have Brine Comber, 3 mana, 1/1. When it enters battlefield or becomes the target of an aura spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. That's cool. Yeah, if it were that cheap though. I do think the Fleeting Spirit is good. Probably taking another Fierce Retribution here. What's Desperate Farmer do? 3 mana, 2/2 lifelink. Whenever another creature you control dies, transform it, and it turns into a 4/3 lifelink. That's a cool card, actually. Here I'd go Fierce Retribution, just get some more good removal. Wolf Strike is some green removal. Pretty limited. This Boarded Windows is a card I saw early, and I actually really like this card. I think this card is very good. Remember, you can have a bunch of creatures out, and then all creatures that attack you just get -1/-0. Granted, they can get rid of it, but I think Boarded Windows is legit good. I'd probably go Fierce Retribution, though. They're saying Desperate Farmer might be better for my deck, but... Or Fleeting Spirit. I think both are fine. I'd probably rather have the Retribution, though. Tough to go wrong with good removal. Plus, Fierce Retribution for us is exceptionally good because we're a slower deck anyway, so... All right. So we've got that Soul Cipher board. We've got Spiked Ripsaw, 3 mana, +3/+3. Whenever it attacks, you can sacrifice Forest and give it trample. It's kind of cool. Resistance Squad. Yeah, we already saw this. I don't think we have that many humans, though, so it's less good here. Yeah, we've got like one other human. Probably just taking another Fierce Retribution. There is another Rot-Tide Gargantuan here, too, which is cool, but... And there's Sigarda's Imprisonment. But that's true. We've got a few solid options here. I think I like the Retribution more than the Imprisonment. Because as people mentioned, there's quite a bit of exploit, which makes it worse. Even though you can exile them eventually. I'd probably just go Retribution because it's so versatile and well costed. They think the Imprisonment's better than that? I'm still going to go Retribution. All right. So we can take the Ragged Recluse, another chance to take that. We do have a few blood token creators, don't we? Grisly Rituals. Oh, yeah. Well, a little bit tougher. We'll have to take a close look at the deck at the end. All right, so we have Undying Malice. Yeah, me neither, Progress. Another Bolt. All right, wait. Whenever this creature dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter. So it's like Undying, essentially. Hence the name, probably. Ragged Recluse. We've got Sigarda's Imprisonment, which I'm kind of okay taking here. Piercing Light. 2 damage to an attacking or blocking creature. Scry 1. We didn't see that one before, did we? I feel like I skipped that one. Was this not in... we went through all the white cards. I don't remember seeing Piercing Light. That's a pretty good... cheap removal spell with Scry attached to it, though. I like that. Probably going to end up taking Imprisonment. What's the Raconteur do? 4 mana, 2/4, cast a non-creature, deals 1 damage to each opponent, and it turns into a 4/4. Yeah, that's a good card too. Probably going Imprisonment. We're going to need some more creatures at some point, but for now. Oh, wow. Wedding Security is cool with all the blood token stuff. Because we do have a few blood token things, don't we? Maybe not that many. Dying to Serve, 3 mana. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token. You can only trigger it once a turn. So once again, this is good with the blood tokens. Good observation there. Adamant Will, probably not what we need. I do like this Wedding Security. I'm kind of feeling that, but Dying to Serve seems a little bit too build-around-y for what I'm trying to do right now. Fleeting Spirit's a pretty solid 2-drop. And Drogskull Infantry is a solid 2-drop too. We've got quite a few expensive things, but we've got cheap removal already. Wouldn't hurt to have cheaper creatures. I mean, I think the value you get out of Wedding Security is pretty nuts. It does have to attack to get the counter and draw, but this thing beats down and gives you card advantage. I kind of like it. It's not like we're lacking cheap things either. Probably go Security. I'm looking at like Security and Fleeting Spirit. Dying to Serve's kind of appealing to build around too, but I don't know. We're in blood token colors, so I kind of like it. So another Distracting Geist. Unhallowed Phalanx, 5 mana, 1/13. Zombie Soldier that enters tap. This is not a good card. Can take another Kindly Ancestor, 2. I think Kindly Ancestor is overall weaker than Distracting Geist, but for our deck, probably the Ancestor is better, honestly, with the lifelink. We just need to buy time. Buying time in this deck is quite good. Just because we've got a lot of powerful late game stuff happening. What hasn't been updating? So we can take the Piercing Light now, or we can take the Rottide Gargantua. Honestly, I like the Gargantua. We have a lot of cheap removal already, so... Wait, which one's for the Toughness Matters deck? I'm going to take the Rottide Gargantua here, even though it's another expensive thing. It's just a good card. And we already have quite a few. I mean, we already have 3 Fierce Retributions too, so that's feeling pretty good. What's this nuts thing do? You can tap 2 damage to you. Yeah, that's true. Wandering Mind is good, however. Massive Might's a good trick too. I like the Visionary. Oh, the Toughness Matters deck, the 1/13. Okay. I'll take the Gargantua. It's expensive, but it's a good card. If your opponent has 1 creature and you get to play this, sack your weak thing and kill their big thing and get a 5/4, this card's good. I mean, you don't always have to exploit either. I really do like this Scavenger. I think that's good. Could take this Bystander. Life gain too. We get the Dawnheart Geist as more. That's only when we cast enchantments, so we don't need this training thing. We don't need the Heron. I'm kind of okay with the Scavenger, although taking more 2-drop creatures couldn't hurt either, especially 2-drops that turn into 3/5s that we can actually use the ability with. Yeah, I think I'm going to take the Bystander here over the Scavenger. This is just like the perfect deck for Bystander. Groom's Finery I don't really like. Could take the Slayer maybe for sideboard. I don't think we're a Nurturing Presence deck, so I'd probably take the Slayer. Got the Boarded Window back. Honestly, I kind of want to take this. I really like this card. Putting the web address in there locked it out of your feed. So is it not updating for you guys? No, I have to like check real quick. Oh. All right. Well, I'm going to take the Boarded Window because I like this card. We didn't see Wedding Invitation before. 2 mana, artifact, enters draw, sack it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn if it's a vampire. It also gains lifelink. That's cool. I do like the Geist too. But I'm going to take Boarded Window. I have a good feeling about this card. Another Rot-Tide Gargantua. Well, I can keep taking them. I mean, we're going to need some more cheap things to get value out of them, but I don't really need a Traveling Minister. All right, you know, Militia Rallier is actually good for our decks. At least it's a 3 mana, 3/3 blocker. All right, here we're going to take the Infantry, get a nice solid little 2-drop that could. Yeah, Supernatural Rescue, sure. What's Old Rutstein do? 3 mana, 1/4. When it enters, or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill. If it mills a land card, create a treasure. If a creature card is milled, create a 1/1 insect. But non-creature, non-land card is milled this way, create a blood token. Well, you get a lot of value out of it. That's cool. Let's see. In white, we have Griff Rider. In black, we have Gift of Fangs. Oh, that's kind of cool. 1 mana removal spell for non-vampires. Or another Distracting Geist. Let's see. We have 1, 2, 3. You can kind of count those as removal. I'm trying to do a removal spell count here. We've got a pretty good removal spell count already. So I could see taking another Distracting Geist. Or we could take the Gift of Fangs because it's cheap removal. I'm going to go Distracting Geist. Investigator's Journal. All right, 2 mana. Enters battlefield with a number of suspect counters on it equal to the number of creatures a player controls. You can remove a suspect counter from it and draw. Or you can sack it and draw. That's okay. We're not going to have a ton of creatures out at one time, though, which makes it a little bit worse. Heron of Hope flies and can have lifelink, which is good. Or we could do the Socialite because it creates blood tokens. Or we could take the Gift of Fangs for some more cheap removal. I mean, blood tokens are going to be good, especially since we already have the Wedding Security. Could equate to more card draw. Plus 4 mana, 3/3 Menace is not bad. I like the cheap removal of Gift of Fangs, but... And it's permanent. Neg 2 on non-vampires. That is pretty good. It's like a dead weight, sort of. Guess I'll try Gift of Fangs. Just make sure we're staying busy early. Twin Blade Geist, we can take the Disturbed creature. Or we can take a Heron of Hope. Yeah, his Bramble Armor, was that in the last pack? I didn't even notice. Here, I'd probably take the Geist. I mean, we have some fatties. Plus, it's good sack fodder for all of our Gargantuas, so I'm okay with it. Comes back as an enchantment, so we can gain life too. Probably take the Kindly Ancestor here. Otherwise, there's... Hey, thanks for the subscription, Narori. Appreciate it. Probably taking Kindly Ancestor again, just getting all the life linkers. Ooh, Valorous Stance, that's a good one. I mean, we already have a lot of removal. We probably don't need it. Could do the Ragged Recluse. Already have 3 Gargantuas. Probably taking... Well, Valorous Stance is protection plus kill spell. It's pretty good. Wait, what's the Purifier do? 3 mana, 2/3 lifelink? Oh, we gotta take the Purifier. Yeah, never mind. This card is pretty awesome. Could take the Evolving Wilds. We have life gain for Courier Bat, so I actually really like it in this deck. Because we have quite a few Ancestors. All right, I could see taking Courier Bat. Evolving Wilds would be free, and we probably already have enough cards for a deck, but I'd still take it. Love the Scavenger. Probably take it over the Heron, despite being a little expensive. Another Twin Blade Geist, never hurt nobody. Or we could take another Ancestor for more lifelink value. Panicked Bystander looks like me. I'll have to look at that. How you doing, Winston? Maybe we need more 2-drop creatures. Could take another Geist. I kind of just want all these Ancestors. We have life gain synergies in here now, so I kind of want to take this. So we can take the Griff Rider, get an evasive creature. We can take the Adamant Will. Probably take the Griff Rider. None of these cards matter for us. Take another Sideboard, aim for the head. I'm okay with that. Don't need any of these. Geist is playable. Sanctify. All right. So we can deck build. So how do I get rid of this? Oh, good. Okay. Well, I want bordered windows. Oh, it's off the screen again. Sorry, guys. How do I zoom in on this? All right. So let's go through. We don't need the blue. We're black-white. We don't need the Officiant. Downheart Geist, maybe. Because we have some Disturb in here. Obviously keeping the Retributions. Don't need the Nurturing Presence. I like the Bystander. Don't need the Sanctify. Geist I like. Don't need the Slayer. Distracting Geist I probably keep. 4 Kindly Ancestors is cool. Got the Ralliers too. I don't know if I need them. I'm still kind of okay with Heron Bless, guys. We've got some enchantments in here. We've got the Grisly Rituals, the Wedding Security, a bunch of Rawtide Gargantuas, Scavengers, Purveyor, Bat. Don't need the aim for the heads. Could keep the... All right. So probably have to make quite a few more cuts. Probably don't need the Ralliers. How many cards we have? We have 12 cards in our deck. Oh, it's saying this on our right is the deck, but I would have said this is my deck, the pool here. So this is 30 cards. We'd have to make 7 more cuts. So I think we can do that. Maybe 3 Rawtide Gargantuas, a little bit excessive. I don't think we need the... We probably don't need the Dawnheart Geist. It does have synergy with Courier Bat, I guess. Probably don't need the Rescue. I want the Imprisonment. Let's look at... my worst removal spells. I mean, we do have 2 rituals and we have quite a bit of top end. We probably have too much top end right now, so... Could probably cut a Gargantua. Kind of okay with 4 Ancestors. I don't think we need the Griff Rider. This isn't really a Griff Rider deck anyway. Maybe don't need the Geist, even though I kind of like it. Good, get some exploit value out of it too. The second half at least. So we have 24, we have 26. We have to make 3 more cuts to make a deck. Probably cut one of these. How many creatures do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we can cut 3 creatures and call it a deck too. Probably don't need the Dawnheartgeist. Okay, I'll sort by mana cost here in a little bit. I guess we can do it now. So we only have to cut really 2 more creatures and we can call it a deck. So Wedding Security basically has synergy with not that many cards in the deck. So maybe it's not good enough here. Because we have a few ways to make blood tokens, but not that many. So I could see security not being good enough. A lot of kindly ancestors. Definitely like the purifier in here, and the courier bat gets stuff back, which is cool. What are the weakest creatures in the deck? Have you tried making a deck by putting everything in the side and making adds instead of cuts? Oh, that's interesting. I could do that. I feel like I'd miss something, though. Progress. I'm not sure what I want to cut from here. This is actually tough. This is one of those things where you have to play the format for a little while to get a really good feel for it. Could see maybe cutting the Geist. They're a great card. It's just doesn't exactly fit in with what we're trying to do here. Wait, did I cut too many? I don't think so. 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, I did cut too many. So wait, that was a deck? Because I'm only counting 21 right now, so we could bring these back if we wanted. Or maybe I bring in 1 and 1 more ritual. Because that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4... Oh wait, how did Nurturing Presence get in there? That's weird. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So then we could bring in the Geist. That's true. I like this. This looks good to me. We have a lot of removal, too. Yeah. I think this is a good deck. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to eat some lunch. That was fun, though. I'm not opposed to doing more draft sims later here either. Yeah, that was fun. This is maybe even a better way to do it than going through each card, just because it's exhausting going through every single card. And I kind of like drafting. I feel like gives you a better perspective, too, on how it all kind of comes together. But overall, I like this. This looks like it would have been a good deck. I mean, a lot of hard removal, a lot of lifelink. Good anti-value stuff with Death Touch. getting stuff back. Pretty good fatty count. Big finisher that we can get back. Well, I work again tomorrow, so I can't stream, but I will stream the day before release, so that's Wednesday. I'm planning on streaming. And we'll do some more draft sims, okay? Sound good? All right, folks. Well, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for doing this alongside me. It was fun. We'll do some more draft sims before the release. Otherwise, I look forward to drafting Crimson Vow and getting some feedback from y'all. All right. Thanks. We'll check y'all later.